Hey guys, Unlicensed GT here with another video. Today I'm going to be doing, a lot of firsts. First of all, you probably noticed that I'm not in my, at this point, traditional Ferrari 488 GT3. Instead, I'm going to be in the Porsche 911 GT3R. So a bit of a different car today, but also a different track. So the Nürburgring. The first time I will be doing a race here, at least on video. I have, of course, done races here, multiplayer and single player before, but not at the time length that I'm going to be featuring today, which is 1 hour. I'm going to be doing a 1 hour race in the Porsche 911 GT3R at the Nürburgring. I'm also going to be doing a bit of different weather setting race as well. The weather itself is going to be cloudy. While it's going to be an optimum track status, I'm probably assuming there's going to be probably lower temperatures, and I'm going to have to deal with that coming in with my setup and all this. So it's going to be a bit tricky. Not only that though, to further improve on that, I've decided that the main race itself is going to be held at night. So it's going to be different from my practice and qualifying, which will actually be done during the day. Now, also going into this, I'm going to have 30 minutes of practice, 20 minutes of qualifying, so I can get the most time possible on the track. However, likely because of time constraints right now, I won't be able to do the race all in one go. So practice and qualifying will be done separately, and then later on I'll be taking those results and hopefully putting them into a separate race with the same settings and everything like that, that I will do separately to that. Now, obviously, this is going to be a very different car. The Porsche 911 is obviously rear engine drive, so I'm going to have to try and learn it as I go. But I'm very excited about this. I'm excited to show you this, and so without further ado, let's get straight on to the qualifying. Okay, so here we are in the qualifying. So as a quick overview and with a few spoilers, I'm going to make second with this this run that you're seeing now. Why second? Well, although the lap itself, when I set it, is actually the fastest, the number 18 Lamborghini is going to set the fastest time. Around the time when I set this time, I should say, I had already done a couple of laps and it was getting a bit on in the actual qualifying. And obviously, eventually the GT4 is going to set off and do their own times, which would have likely slowed me down completely. This was really the last real run I could get in. Well, I don't really mind having second. Considering it's been such a long time since I've actually been able to do this race, I haven't had a lot of practice, so in some areas like this corner, for example, before this I was actually going off a little bit. And obviously when you go off a little bit in a set of corners, or any kind of, like your tire is just a little bit off the track, it cuts the time automatically. So, unfortunately, I wasn't able, sometimes I actually had before this, even though I had a little bit of, what would you call it? I guess like an excursion from the track or something. I couldn't actually set any good times. Now, obviously, during this run, I was able to identify some areas where I was going to be slower than a lot of the AI, and this area I'm coming up to right now, the last chicane and the last corner are my slowest areas, and I knew I was going to be slower than AI coming through this. Regardless, though, it was a good run. Practice was good too. I was still setting some of the third and fourth fastest lap times, and obviously getting second overall was fantastic. Now I do believe coming across the line, it was roughly a 2 minute. In some of my practice runs that weren't, because I had a cut, weren't recorded, I did get a 1:59.8, which is my all-time record for this track. Well, anyway, with that qualifying out of the way and with my second place, let's get straight on to the race itself. Alright, so here we get started on the parade lap for this race. So you've probably already noticed there's a bit of a shake-up in the order of the cars. So since I came back to this race a bit later on in the day, it didn't really... I thought it might save the order, that it might be predicted based on the AI. Didn't turn out that way. So while I'm in second, the Lamborghini, the number 18 that was supposed to be in pole position, instead is down in fourth, and instead the number 2 Aston Martin is in pole. Doesn't really change too much though. I mean, that's about the position of all the cars anyway. They're just jumbled around a bit. I do believe the number 2 Aston came in third overall. So it's not really too much of a difference. And it kind of, I mean, thinking about it, did give me a little bit of an advantage at the start because I'm not having to deal with what I would consider to be my main rival straight off the bat there. So anyway, in regards to this race, it was an incredibly challenging race. I have never done like an hour-long race in the night before. Well, not really hour-long races during the day either. I mean, I might have done them a long time ago, but this is the first time in a while. First time at night. And I found it incredibly difficult to sometimes even focus on elements of the track. Because it's so dark and you kind of get this tunnel vision, it can be really difficult at times to actually pinpoint like where you're really supposed to go. And honestly, the practice and the qualifying gave me a ton of experience with the track, so I knew the layout just enough to actually complete this race. And, well, I won't spoil it, but I got a good result, I would say. Anyway, as we come down here, some of the, as I identified before in the qualifying, there is a specific area, not this corner, but coming up, the final chicane before the last corner into the start-finish stretch that I definitely did have problems with. I definitely was losing time in that area to the AI. It's mostly because I didn't want to go and push it too much because I didn't want to spin off or anything like that. It would have caused like all sorts of issues. But anyway, as we come down here now, we're going to go from a single line formation to a twin line formation. Again, a nice view of all of those cars coming down here. I would say though, it definitely was fun. One of the things that definitely I experienced in this race, which I've never done before, is pit stopping. At least, well, not for a while, I should say, really. And especially doing it in an hour-long race where it can really count, and when you do it can really count. I had to think strategically, and that added a bit of fun into it. But anyway, as we come down now to the last corner into the start-finish straight, well, we're about to see what happens right now at the beginning of this race. Switching views now to the cockpit camera. We're getting ready here to go, and we have started. Now I get an incredibly good start going into this, which I was a bit surprised by. I kind of leave everybody behind. That's probably the best start I could have probably ever hoped for. Now for the first corner especially, I had to be really careful because every time I would come down to that area in particular, I would experience, well, this was during practice and qualifying, but I would clip it. I'd clip the curb just enough to where it would destabilize the car and I'd be thrown into a spin or something. And so, quite quickly I realized I had to be careful about that. Some other areas that I had to be careful of, as I mentioned during qualifying, was... well, where the corner's coming down at the end of this. Now, I usually use a bit of a marker, this area in particular, to identify when is the earliest I should be braking. And typically, throughout this race, I usually, well, yeah, typically it didn't really miss that mark. And so I didn't really have any problems like I did in qualifying and practice earlier on. Now for a first lap, obviously, I'm running on tyres that are, well, they're cold tyres really. Although I had the parade lap, didn't really work too much heat into them, so I was quite cautious about pushing it during my first lap here. Now maybe you can possibly see as I come up to this chicane right before the final corner. So I brake around here. I'm still very cautious because I could have easily lost it and spun right off over there. But coming down into the final corner, I'm about a second ahead of the number 2 Aston Martin. You probably already noticed that the number 18 Lamborghini is creeping up, already in third position. I was trying to build up during these first couple of laps enough space to where I didn't really have to worry all that much about the Lamborghini, especially because we have a pit stop in that I have to keep in mind, and obviously when I'm in the pits, depending on how good I am and how fast I am at getting through it, that Lamborghini might make up all the time, and suddenly we're in a bad position coming into the second half of this race. So I wanted to make as much space as possible, also bearing in mind that I have the GT4 cars, and those GT4 cars are obviously going to have a bit of a challenge. The funny thing is though, I'm in lead right now, and provided I get up to the GT4s and I'm in the lead, I'm going to have that problem straight on, and I'm not going to really be looking to use that to my advantage of passing the other cars. Obviously there is an advantage, since it's going to hold up people behind me, but I'm not going to have that advantage, say, in other races where I was using it as a way to get ahead of other cars, GT3 cars I should say, that are ahead of me. Overall though, I would say so far so good. I'm still maintaining a fairly sizable gap between me and the number 2 Aston Martin. I'm hoping at this point that they keep the Lamborghini held up so that I can just keep building on. Now back again to this part of the course. I'm still really cautious about this, even though I've gotten some heat into the tyres now and I can probably handle it a bit better. You're probably going to notice that already the number 2 Aston Martin, I should say, is getting closer. It was something I noticed and just tried on the parts where I knew I was quicker. Tried to push as hard as I could. I am still consistently getting faster laps, like that's a 2:03 right there. Still not faster than my qualifying lap, but I'm pretty sure that will change throughout this. I was pretty consistent throughout, except for obviously the pit stop and one incident that you will no doubt see if you keep watching this video. But overall, I would say so far so good. Alright, so here we are, about coming on to my 12th lap right now, about a third of the way in. Down at the bottom right there, I do believe I would have my best, yes, it's about 2 minutes, 2 minutes 0.8, which is my best lap, as well as having my last, which was 2 minutes 02. Been pretty consistent up until this point about maintaining roughly for 2:02. Now, one of the other things you've probably already noticed is that I've now met up with the backlight to the GT4 category. So what I'm trying to do right now is figure out how to get my way through this pack and not really lose too much time. At the beginning of this section, I was 2.7 seconds ahead of the number 18 Lamborghini, which I'd been steadily increasing over the course of this first half. I did really well up until this point, but unfortunately the, I guess, challenge of trying to navigate through these GT4 cars is going to reduce the amount of time between me and the Lamborghini. Overall though, with the first one, the Porsche, I was trying to be really careful. I was able to get past it, but it did shave some time off the gap between me and the Lamborghini. We're down to 1.8 already. The next one, coming through these next few cars, I was still trying to be really careful. I didn't want to cause an accident and ultimately throw myself off the track. So here, I am slowing down when I probably didn't really need to, but I wanted to be careful. I am getting slightly worried about, the Lamborghini catching up, so here I kind of do something a bit unconventional and throw myself through that corner. Honestly, with me saying I was trying to be so careful, that definitely was not a careful move for me. I don't know what came over me at that moment. I probably just got really frustrated and worried about the Lamborghini, honestly. But the Lamborghini is now 1.4 seconds behind. So obviously catching up, and that last lap was a 2:04.5. Still, overall, I'm doing better than I thought I would have done. I thought I would have slammed right into the back of that Porsche or caused some kind of accident, but so far so good. Bearing in mind this is the first time, at least in a proper race, that I've actually been the lead and having to navigate through, backlight. So, I would say overall, for a first time experience, this isn't actually, this isn't all that bad for me, I would say. Now this corner I was particularly worried about because you can get pretty tight, and I was really worried about this Aston. I did get a bit of a nudge from him there, which probably was my fault, trying to be a bit too aggressive. But I mean, I have to try and get ahead because that Lamborghini is right there, right now, down to 1.2 seconds. Although that hasn't updated yet, I probably imagine it's far closer than that at this point. Up to the number 43 BMW, I believe, who is going to slow me again a bit down here because I didn't want to try and take over, even if even though I could be faster through here than them. And up to this McLaren. The McLarens overall, I would say, were quite easy to get by. It was actually mostly the BMWs I was worried about because of my other race on Spa, where one of them spam me 360, and luckily I was able to regain that. But up until this point, coming into through to my traditionally slower area, I would say I'm doing pretty well in taking them. In fact, in the first half, I would say, I mean, even then, like you can probably see, up to about 2 minutes. So coming up to this at the end of the first half, sorry, not 2 minutes, 2 seconds. I'm in a really good advantageous position over the Lamborghini. My goal at this point was to try and widen the gap enough so that I could pit stop, or at least like have a pit stop where I could be far enough ahead to where the Lamborghini doesn't get like a jump ahead of me while I'm pit stopping. Or at least if he was to do that, it wouldn't be too far and I could catch him up over time, because I am improving the quicker out of the two in terms of pace. So coming up to these final few cars, I'm going to get past them no problem. So let's skip on ahead and straight into me coming into the pits here. So as you probably notice, I'm on my 15th lap going on, sorry, 16th lap going on 17th lap. I am coming into the pits for the first time, just enabled my limiter there, but I did come in a bit slow, so maybe the Lamborghini who came in a lap before may use that to his advantage, and, well, he will, I think. My laps best is still the same. My last lap was a 2 minutes 11. That's obviously going to be a bit slower because of me coming into the pits there, but essentially still consistent. Everything has been fine up to this point. I'm going to have my first pit stop here, which will also include a driver change for the first time ever. So, in terms of pits, as you probably noticed me coming in there, I was definitely on the lines. I definitely wasn't over to the left, which I'm not sure if in real life would be a penalty or not. Well, actually, yeah, it probably would be. But this is probably my first time, so please forgive me on that front. So, with everything being finished here, obviously I was a bit nervous because I didn't know if the times and all that would have mattered to the point where the Lamborghini would get ahead of me. Coming through, though, with my pit complete, I come out of the pits and I noticed almost immediately the Lamborghini comes zooming past me. Now, I had obviously hoped, as I said before, that I would be at least a little bit ahead of the Lamborghini, at least my other position, but I think I was just too slow coming in and also too slow reacting to get out. But this isn't the worst position in the world to be in. I am right behind him with probably only 1.5 or 2 seconds. We'll probably just wait for this to update. Being behind him, you know, by only a bit. So I wasn't too unhappy about the position I'm courting currently. I will be able to catch up to him over the course of maybe a few laps, definitely before the end of the race. So I decided just to sit in and, well, first of all, work up some temperature in my tyres. That's going to be the most important thing currently, and just trying to get back into the groove and try and catch him up and try not to make any mistakes that would cost me. But I would say overall, probably a good pit stop. I need to improve on it, just on my entry and my exit, I guess, simply because I was too slow. Coming ahead though, on my 21st lap at this point, I'm only like a split second behind him now. And so probably enters into a lap of what I can only describe as being a proper fight, at least in terms of, in my experience. I've never really had a fight and battle for position that's been quite like this. Probably heightened by the fact that this is such a personal battle. You probably can see the third position is still held by the number 2 Aston, but he's a good 10 seconds behind. So that's a huge amount of distance. And so with no cars really ahead of us, no cars really behind of us that we can see, it becomes a real one-on-one fight for first place. And one fight that I was determined to win. Overall, up until this point, I've really enjoyed being in first place. I've never really had such a run, like 30 minutes where I was pretty much unchallenged, even with the GT4 cars. And I knew at this point that I could probably beat him on pace, and so here we are. Coming into the 22nd lap, I'm trying to find a position where I can overtake him, and it would be, well, probably the best, probably some of the best positions I could probably overtake him would be coming up into these next series of corners. Probably from my last lap, I did fail to mention it, but you probably saw that I was getting a bit aggressive coming into that final chicane. I was just trying to take some risks and try and find a way past him, with, even if it meant, you know, going against my earlier advice to myself, which was, you know, don't, especially in that place, don't try and make as many, take as many risks as you probably would want. But coming through, I am finally able to overtake him at this point, and I come in and cut him off. He backs off, and the overtake is complete. So I'm back in first place, and so from now on I'm going to skip probably a bit further on ahead to where I'm going to be intermingled once again with all the GT4 cars. Alright, so skipping ahead here to my 26th lap now. You probably will notice at the bottom right, I've beaten my last best of 2.8. It's actually now 2.4. So I'm getting quicker and quicker and being quite consistent, even where being intermingled now with the GT4s, which at this point I've been on the second lot of that for quite a while. So far, so good. I'm up to probably up until the last little bits, last few cars really of the GT4s. But here I'm going to make a massive mistake that's going to cost me quite dearly. I get through the Aston here and I try and take the McLaren too, and this part was it. Like, I got hit by the McLaren, I kind of span off, I tried my best here to try and get fired up and back on. The Lamborghini goes straight past me, bearing in mind he was 6 seconds behind me at that point. I try my best and I just spin off again, so eventually I'm just like, well, F it, let's just try and get back onto the track before this Aston gets past me. I do. In real life that probably would have been a penalty, but anyway, I'm still in second at the very least. big disaster. Big disaster. Lost a lot of time on that. No, I'm not going to recover it. And so by the time I'm on my 29th lap, the last lap, I unfortunately don't make up that time. Even though I'm 7.5 seconds ahead of the Aston at this point and 6.5 seconds behind him, I come across the line in second place. Not the worst result in the world. I guess the lesson to take here is not to be overconfident and just think you're going to win. I lost it all, but it wasn't too bad. Anyway, if you like this, please like and subscribe and tune in for more.